All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a situation that, let's be honest, every single educator dreads. You've just graded a big exam, and the scores are, well, they're way lower than you expected. We're going to break down the modern, evidence-based way to handle this, especially in a high-stakes world like medical school. So when those scores come back and your heart sinks a little, what's your first move? Let's get into it.
Okay, so picture this. You're staring at your screen, looking at the results. The class average is a full 10 points lower than you were hoping for. Ugh. So what do? Is the knee-jerk reaction to just, slap 10 points onto everyone's score and call it a day? Well, the research says, hold on a second. There's a much better and, frankly, a smarter way to handle this.
So before we even think about changing a single score, we've got to get our heads around the two basic ways of thinking about grades. First up, you've got criterion-referenced assessment. This is where you measure a student against a set, fixed standard. The best way to think about it is a driving test, right? You either parallel park correctly or you don't. It doesn't matter if the person before you was a stunt driver. On the other side, you've got norm reference grading. This is what pretty much everyone calls grading on a curve. Here, students are judged against each other. Your grade isn't just about what you know, it's about where you land in the class ranking. And believe me, that difference is everything. Because right now, there's a huge shift in places like medical school, a massive move towards that first model. Let's dig into why that is.
Okay, so let's get back to that exam with the disappointing scores. Now, before you even dream of adjusting grades, your first job is to put on your detective hat. Because here's the thing, maybe the problem isn't the students. Maybe it's the test. Was it even a fair, accurate assessment in the first place? So what does that detective work look like? Well, it's a pretty straightforward three-step diagnosis. First, you've got to look at the quality of every single question. That's called item analysis. We'll get to that in a sec. Second, you check the whole exam's reliability. Did students even have enough time to finish it? And third, you review what you actually tested. Did the questions line up with what you taught? See, jumping straight to a grade curve without doing this, it's basically like a doctor prescribing medication without even asking what your symptoms are. It just doesn't make sense. All right, so I mentioned item analysis. What does that even mean? It's really just a fancy term for digging into the data for each individual question. You're asking things like, how many people got this right? Did my top-performing students get it right while the struggling students got it wrong? Because look, if you have a question that was so confusing that even your absolute best students missed it, that's a huge red flag, and it tells you the problem isn't the students, it's the question. And in that case, the fix is easy. You just toss out the bad question or give everyone credit for it. No complicated curve required. Okay, so you've done your due diligence, you went through the test, you found a couple of wonky questions and threw them out. But the scores are still low across the board. The data is telling you, hey, this exam was just plain harder than I meant for it to be. Now, and only now, is it time to open up the toolbox and talk about actually adjusting grades.
So, what's in that toolbox? Well, here are the two most common and most responsible ways to do this. The simplest one is called an additive uplift. It's exactly what it sounds like. You just add a certain number of points to everybody's score. This is perfect for when an exam was just a little too tough for everyone because it keeps the student rankings exactly the same. Then you have something a bit more advanced called linear rescaling. This is where you might say multiply all the scores by a certain number to make the highest score a perfect 100. It also keeps everyone in the same rank order, but it can stretch out the scores at the top end. But here's the most important part. For both of these methods, they are a fix for a broken test, not a way to force some predetermined bell curve.
But no matter which method you choose, there are some golden rules you absolutely have to follow. Rule number 1, be transparent. You've got to tell your students exactly what you did and why you did it. You know what's even better? Put your adjustment policy right in the syllabus from day one. No surprises. Always, always, always let the data, that diagnosis you did, make the decision for you. And lastly, write it all down. Document everything. This isn't just about being fair this one time. It's about learning from this so you can build even better exams down the road.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the how, the mechanics of all this. But now we need to talk about the why. Why is there this huge push away from that old school competitive grading on a curve? Well, it's because the way we grade has a massive, real-world impact on the students and the entire culture of learning. Just look at this number. By 2020, a whopping 88% of U.S. medical schools had already started moving towards criterion reference grading. A lot of them are even using a simple pass-fail system for the first couple of years. This isn't just some tiny trend, folks. This is a massive, seismic shift in how we think about education, and it's all being driven by some really important data about student well-being.
And speaking of that data, it is absolutely eye-opening.
Take a look at this. A 2023 study that looked at medical schools in Korea found that students in programs that graded on a curve, that's the norm-referenced bar you see there, reported way higher levels of stress, burnout, and even depression. But the students in the criterion reference systems, they had much better mental health. It's a direct line. The way we grade has a real, measurable impact on the health of our future doctors.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. Curving pits students against one another, removing the potential for a more cooperative learning environment. This really gets to the core of the problem. Think about it. If there are only 5 A's available in a class, why would you ever help your classmates study? Their success could literally hurt your grade. It turns learning into this brutal zero-sum game. And that is the absolute opposite of the collaborative, team-based world we need in a field like medicine.
So, after all that, what's the takeaway? Where do we go from here? Let's put it all together and talk about what the new gold standard for assessment really looks like.
Okay, here it is. The 5 big recommendations from all the research. Number 1, make it official. Adopt criterion-referenced policies. Number 2, and this is a huge one, get rid of any rules that force a grade quota, like saying only 10% of students can get an A. If everyone earns an A, everyone gets an A. Third, use formal methods to actually set your passing scores. A popular one is the Angoff method. It's basically where you get a bunch of experts together to decide, question by question, what a competent student should know. It's about mastery, not about how the rest of the class did. Fourth, like we've said, let the data from the exam tell you if an adjustment is needed. And finally, number 5, all of this is designed to build a culture where students focus on actually mastering the material and helping each other out instead of just trying to beat the person sitting next to them.
And that brings us to the fundamental question, the one that this whole conversation really boils down to. What is our goal? Is it just to rank students against one another, or is it to make sure that every single person who gets a passing grade is truly competent and ready for what's next? Especially in a field like medicine, the evidence points overwhelmingly to the second one. Our grading needs to reflect that. Thanks so much for joining us on The Explainer.